This is a recording from our 30-minute snack room bite-sized learning series focusing on achieving excellence together with collaborative coaching and feedback. In this video, we'll review topics like using coaching and feedback as a tool for increased employee engagement, for greater levels of performance to help create a highly enjoyable corporate culture, strengthening employee relationships through the use of constructive feedback models, and gain the confidence to interact with others even when you anticipate the conversation might be difficult.
Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Good afternoon, I guess, to those on the East Coast. I'm in the Midwest. I'm out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So East Coast time zone, though. So for me, it's afternoon. So excited to see so many of you here. This is obviously a hot topic. I think I see maybe a few familiar faces of folks who've been in my sessions before, and a lot of new faces as well. Which we'll talk a little bit more about me and the organization in just a moment. But this is the snack room. Welcome to the snack room. So instead of like a 5-course deep dive meal on a topic, we're going to give you this bite-sized learning. And that means a lot of information at a pretty rapid pace. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, a little bit about me so you know who you're listening to for the next 30 minutes. My name is Mary Klein, again, out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I am a facilitator and a coach. I have over 20 years, kind of considerably at this point, over 20 years of experience helping leaders become better leaders. Coaching, developing, helping them learn and grow. I've probably influenced thousands of leaders at this point in my career, and I just love what I do. I love people, helping people reach their potential. Personally, I'm married to a great guy. I've got 4 young adult kids. We love to travel. We just got back from a trip to Colorado, rafting and hiking, and now I'm refreshed and re-energized to get back to facilitating and helping people learn and grow. For those of you who are not familiar with the Leadership Edge, a little bit about our organization. What we do as an organization is we have the privilege of accelerating the pace and culture of what we believe are the most innovative life science companies in the world. And we've been doing that, I believe, as of this month for 35 years. So super, super exciting. Our focus is on people. Everything we do comes back to people. And by optimizing the talent and leaders and teams across the organizations that we work with, we're able to accelerate the pace of getting great, innovative solutions to patients. And that's what motivates us, helping others from the bench to the boardroom help patients. So what are my objectives for you today? First, I want to help you learn how to use coaching and feedback as a tool for increased employee engagement, a tool to create greater levels of performance in your organizations, and to really promote a positive corporate culture. Leadership is all about relationship, and we want to be able to strengthen employee relationships, even during tough conversations, by using good, strong feedback tools and techniques. And, this is tough stuff. Having these conversations is hard. And so I want to help you gain some confidence in how you interact with others around those tough conversations. So my goal again is that everyone walks out of here with a few nuggets that you can apply right away. One of my passions is this thing called learning transfer, and that's making sure we're giving information that's very usable, very applicable, and you can use it right away. So a few logistics. We are recording the session, and we will share some highlighted clips with you after the session. We are scheduled for 30 minutes, and I'm going to do my best to respect your time and wrap it up right at that 30-minute mark. I will be remaining on the line, though, for an additional 15 minutes for any questions and answers. So if you want to stick around for a little Q&A, you're welcome to do so. With that in mind, because we do have so much information to share over a short time, I would recommend that you hold your questions until the end. So grab a pen and a piece of paper or a document and be ready to kind of jot those questions down and hold them till the end. So with that, we are going to jump into our first poll. So here's a question for you, and our polls are completely anonymous, so please be completely honest. How comfortable are you delivering negative feedback or constructive criticism? I'm very comfortable, it's no big deal. Sometimes I can be comfortable, or honestly, it's stressful for me. So we're going to give you a moment to answer that question. And when we've got most people's in, give it another 10 seconds. All right, and we do have a producer on with us, Savannah, so she's helping me behind the scenes. So Sav, if you want to share those results, that would be great. All right, so love seeing these results. So, and very in keeping, so we've got some national data on this, and what our national data says is that about 15% of people are comfortable providing feedback, and about 44% find it stressful. So you guys are a little above the bar here, right? With 63% somewhat comfortable and 28% finding it stressful. And I'm assuming those folks in the somewhat comfortable, that means that sometimes you do find it stressful. So just interesting kind of to let me know where you are all at in terms of your comfort level on providing feedback. So let's start talking a little bit about performance management. And when I talk about performance management, I'm not talking about your formal performance management system. You may or may not even have one in your organization, depending on the size of your company. But as leaders, we are all responsible for managing performance. And it starts with goal setting and planning, right? Organizational goals, aligning our departmental goals with those goals, and really setting expectations for our people. But really, that takes the least amount of our time. What takes the most amount of our time as leaders is monitoring and assessing and coaching and feedback. Monitoring and assessing might have a little bit of a negative connotation to it, but in today's world where some of you are working in hybrid situations, maybe in matrix situations, we might not have the visibility into our people's performance that we used to. So being very intentional about keeping an eye on what our people are doing, how they're spending their time, monitoring that, assessing that, because that provides us data. And without data, we really can't do a good job of providing coaching and feedback. So making sure that we're being very intentional about keeping an eye on what our folks are doing to get the information that we can then use to provide meaningful coaching conversations. So when we think about performance management as a whole, what are we really trying to achieve? And again, I'm not talking about the formal performance management process. I'm talking about our everyday monitoring, assessing, providing feedback, setting expectations. For me, it's about helping people meet their goals, which in turn meet the goals of the organization, and developing our people. So our role as leaders is to create an environment where our employees can be engaged. So let's talk a little bit more about employee engagement. And this is information from the Gallup organization. And they've been doing this research for a very long time. And I really want to look at the definitions here. So an engaged employee is enthusiastic and committed to their work. So it's more than just happy in the role, right? It's this concept of being enthusiastic. There's an emotional component to it. Nationally, this is the data from 2021, about 36% of folks are in that category. Then let's jump to the opposite end of the spectrum, the actively disengaged folks. So And they changed the definition of this. Now it's disgruntled and disloyal. A few years ago, the definition was miserable. I kind of liked that because misery loves company. And the folks who are actively disengaged, they're vocal. They're trying to get people into their camp, right? And then we have roughly 50% of people in this not engaged category, what we've come to call recently quietly quitting. So they're doing the bare minimum and they may leave when a better opportunity comes along. The other thing we know is that engaged employees are productive employees, and that there is a direct tie between coaching, feedback, and performance management to engagement. So this is also from the Gallup organization based on the research they have done on what motivates people. And there are 12 items here. And if we were to look at those, you can see most of them have an indirect tie to performance management, but 7 or 8 of them have a direct tie. So what creates employee engagement? That people know what's expected of them, that they have the opportunity to do what they do best every day, that they're receiving recognition and praise for doing good work. And we are going to specifically talk about positive feedback a little bit later. That they have someone encourage their development, that they receive feedback, and that they have opportunities to learn and develop. So again, just another reason why coaching and feedback is so critically important. So let's talk about coaching. There are 2 forms of coaching. The first is performance coaching, which is all about focusing on employees' capabilities and efforts toward achieving their goals and producing positive results. This can be the how or the what of their job. Some examples might be an employee is not seeking input from their colleagues while working on a project. They're not consulting the most recent literature. They're consistently missing deadlines, which is hitting the milestones at risk. Or on a positive side, they have accelerated the success of the project by utilizing innovative approaches and new thinking. They're effectively negotiating for resources and a matrix structure. So that's performance coaching. Development coaching is about helping an individual achieve his or her potential and then preparing them for taking on greater responsibilities or toward achieving a long-term career goal or aspiration. So some examples there are maybe they need to develop their presentation skills so that they can engage and influence a larger audience. Maybe they need to begin to understand the budgeting process and demonstrate the ability to put together a realistic annual budget. So 2 types of coaching there. Either way, coaching always starts with listening. And we tend to think about coaching as what we're going to say, but really coaching is about asking good questions and then really listening to what our people are telling us. It's one of the most important components of being a good coach. Quote from Stephen Covey, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. And we know that our brains are not able to truly multitask, that we're switching back and forth, which means when we're thinking about our reply, we're no longer listening to our people. And that's only one barrier. There are many others, distractions, our internal distractions, our busy brain, our external distractions, the ping of an email coming into our computer, right? Or someone walking by our area. Assumptions, preconceived notions, all part of those distractions to listening. But when we are in a coaching conversation, it is critically important that we are completely focused on the person we're in conversation with and that we're listening to what they have to say and the feelings or concerns that are behind what they're saying as well. So now we're tuned in, we're listening. It's time to start the conversation. And I want to talk for a moment about words and word choice. And that may seem like a minor consideration, but words create conversations and conversations create relationships. And leadership is all about relationship. So getting our facts is the homework of providing feedback and coaching. So we want to make sure that our language is focused on behaviors. Behaviors are things we see and things we hear. They are facts. We want to steer clear of labeling and judging. Let's define that. Labeling is making a general statement about a person based on a behavior, right? Joe is a hothead. Judging is interpreting a behavior and assigning my own meaning to it. Joe must not like me. Instead, what we want to do is pinpoint. Pinpoint is identifying a specific behavior. Twice in our meeting yesterday, Joe raised his hand and pointed at me, right? So can you kind of feel the difference between those things? And pinpointing is harder than we think it is. Being truly factual, because the way our brains work, we want to label, we want to judge. So a couple more examples. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just a couple others. If I was going to label Sky, Sky is very defensive. If I was going to judge Sky, Sky must not like this change. But if I'm going to pinpoint, during our 360-degree input training, Sky asked several challenging questions. So you can definitely feel the difference there. And one thing that I'm always really honing in on when I'm coaching people on coaching is this concept of pinpointing. So critically important. Now let's get into a few coaching models. So the first coaching model we're going to look at is a relationship-based feedback model. And this is used when an issue is affecting my relationship with someone. This is a great model to use with a peer or maybe your boss or someone organizationally at a higher level than you in the organization. And it looks like a long model, but I'm going to talk through an example and it really goes pretty quickly, right? So I start with describing the behavior. When you don't show up for a scheduled meeting, and then what's the impact to me? It's a time waster for me. And then what's my feeling? And I feel frustrated or I feel disrespected. And here's the key here. We don't want to pile on. We want to pinpoint, again, one impact, one feeling. We're narrowing the scope, right? Because why am I affected? Because I lose time for other priorities and I'm in a super time crunch these days. And then I'm going to pause. And 99 times out of 100, that person's going to jump in and apologize and take ownership for that behavior. And sometimes we can just leave it at that. Other times we want to move forward and set a new expectation. So going forward, it would really help me to have advance notice because then I won't waste time waiting. So that's really important. Why would this help me, right? Because how would this alleviate the situation of me feeling disrespected? And then what do you think? And have a conversation around that. Now, obviously, this was a very simplistic example, but that's kind of how that relationship feedback flows. Let's move on to a second coaching performance feedback model, and this one is called COIN. And this model can be used on both positive feedback and feedback for improvement. My personal mission, my personal life's mission is to rid the world of the comment negative feedback. Because I do not think there is such a thing as negative feedback. Do negative situations occur? Absolutely. And when we provide feedback on that situation, we are providing feedback for improvement. So even the term constructive criticism has kind of a negative bend to it. So it's a reframing in our own minds that can help us feel a little less stress around the situation as well, when we frame it as feedback for improvement. So this is a simple, straightforward model that we can use to either give positive feedback or feedback for improvement. So we starting in this top right-hand corner with context. With context, we are explaining the purpose of the discussion. Something as simple as, I'd like to give you some feedback on your analysis report. Observation, this is where we pinpoint. This is what is so critically important, to name the specific behavior we want to discuss. So instead of making a judgmental comment like, your report was sloppy, or your report was below expectation, this is specific. I noticed 3 errors in your last report. And then the impact, and this is critically important, and I find the point that is often overlooked or missed. This is the so what factor. And again, we're not going to pile on here. We are going to cite 1 or 2 impacts. When there are errors in your report, it causes your coworkers to have to rework their work, right? To do additional work, and that delays meeting our deadlines. And then the N, which in the coin model sometimes is referred to as a nudge, which I kind of like, because this is where we open the conversation up, right? This is where we ask some open-ended questions to nudge our colleague, whoever we're talking to engage in the conversation. And this is where I like to ask to get their insight. And I might even say that, can you help me understand what's going on here? Help me understand what's going on. I really try to stay away from the why question. Why did your report have errors? Because that causes people to become defensive. And again, we're really trying to make this a two-way dialogue and have a good conversation around it. Again, this model can be used for positive feedback. Positive feedback, research tells us, is at least equally, if not more important than feedback for improvement. All right, one more model. So this is so to me, those first 2 models are really around feedback, which has a looking back component to it with then a move it forward intention, right? So we're going to talk about the behavior that was good or not so good, and then we're going to talk about how to improve upon that or build upon that. The grow model is really about asking good questions, creating thinking, and listening well. When you're using the grow model of coaching, you as the leader or the coach are really only talking about 20% of the time. And the person you're speaking to is talking about 80% of the time. The point of the grow model is to get that coachee thinking, to help them become more confident. So, quickly, I'm going to talk through these first 4 components. Goal, questions like, what is your goal for today? What's most important for you to focus on? Reality, what are you not looking at? What have you been avoiding? Tell me about your current situation. How do you feel about that? Options, if you had a choice, what would you do? Let's imagine it's a year from now and you've been successful. What steps did you take? And then that's all a great conversation, but so important to have the way forward. That again, what are we going to do? What are the actions as a result of this conversation? So what could you do as your very first step? What actions need to be taken? And so many great questions around the grow model that can really get you thinking and having different conversations than you've had previously. So some common traps to providing feedback, things you want to stay away from, starting with that misplaced intention, really checking your intention and make sure it's a positive intention. Using too many words. I'm a big fan of short but sweet. The more you say, the less they remember is one of my mantras. So keep it short and sweet. Again, that listening component. When stating expectations, using I expect instead of the expectations are. We provide excuses. That you language, when we use you, it's like a pointy finger of accusation in their face. You didn't. Instead, focus on the behavior, the thing, instead of the person. A monologue versus a dialogue, we always want to drive for dialogue. Again, this is about relationship. Or we are feeling a little uncomfortable, so we hint around what the concern is or what the behavior is. Instead of, we can be kind and direct. All right. Just another tip is this has been about giving feedback, but what about receiving feedback? As leaders, I encourage you all to ask your people for feedback on your performance. When we can ask and we can get some honesty around that, great information for us. And again, just creates that coaching relationship, that dialogue relationship. So we recommend, this is our 2-22 rule. Take the time to have the 2-minute conversation. Think about it in advance. Develop your coin for some tough feedback. Even practice it to make yourself more comfortable. And literally, it's usually a 2-minute conversation that can really redirect the conversation. If you don't do that, then you end up having a 20-minute conversation because the issue just grows. And if you don't do the 20-minute, now all of a sudden you're in a 2-hour conversation that involves your leader, involves human resources, and we want to avoid that, right? Have that 2-minute conversation in the moment. So I can't believe it's already 30 minutes. That time flew by. I hope it flew by for you as well, and you were able to really get some good tips and tricks. If you're interested in learning more, we have an amazing program called Lab to Leader. I, along with several of my colleagues, facilitate Lab to Leader. It's great for new leaders. It's great for existing leaders that want to grow and learn in their leadership. This module is actually one of our modules from our Lab to Leader program. So we've got some programs starting up in September, some hybrid programs, some Zoom programs. We would love to have you a part of that. If you're interested, please reach out for more information.